right now? Good morning. Welcome to the heart of Longmont, the First United Methodist Church. We are so happy to see masked faces. I was starting to say smiling faces. Just pretend like I know you're all smiling. And for those who may be worshiping with us through the YouTube, welcome to you. And hopefully at some point we will get to see more of your smiling faces gathered here in worship. As we gather today, I have to take a breath for a moment in rushing around. We have prayer concerns later in the service. So if you have one and are here in worship, just write it down and take it back to Eli, and he will see that I have that for prayer concerns. Or if you're on YouTube, you can email those in to Eli, and he will see that we have those here. Are there other concerns that we need to bring up right now or do announcements later towards the end of the service? So we will get, okay, I'm waiting. There's a few people coming in. So Karen, we would love to hear your beautiful prelude.
The scripture today is Exodus 3, verses 1 to 15. One day, while Moses was taking care of the sheep and goats of his father-in-law Jethro, the priest of Midian, he led the flock across the desert and came to Sinai, the holy mountain. There, the angel of the Lord appeared to him as a flame coming from the middle of a bush. Moses saw that the bush was on fire, but that it was not burning up. This is strange, he thought. Why isn't the bush burning up? I will go closer and see. When the Lord saw that Moses was coming closer, he called to him from the middle of the bush and said, "Moses, Moses." He answered, "Yes, here I am." God said, "Do not come any closer. Take off your sandals because you are standing on holy ground. I am the God of your ancestors, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob." So Moses covered his face because he was afraid to look at God. Then the Lord said, "I have seen how cruelly my people are being treated in Egypt. I have heard them cry out to be rescued from their slave drivers. I know all about their sufferings, and so I have come down to rescue them from the Egyptians and to bring them out of Egypt to a spacious land, one which is rich and fertile, and in which the Canaanites, the Hittites, the Amorites, the Perizzites, the Hivites, and the Jebusites now live. I have indeed heard the cry of my people, and I see how the Egyptians are oppressing them. Now I am sending you to the king of Egypt so that you can lead my people out of his country." But Moses said to God, "I am nobody. How can I go to the king and bring the Israelites out of Egypt?" God answered, "I will be with you, and when you bring the people out of Egypt, you will worship me on this mountain. That will be the proof that I have sent you." But Moses replied, "When I go to the Israelites and say to them, 'The God of your ancestors sent me to you,' they will ask me, 'What is his name?' So what can I tell them?" God said, "I am who I am," you must tell them. "The one who is called I Am has sent me to you." Tell the Israelites that I, the Lord, the God of their ancestors, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, have sent you to them. This is my name forever. This is what all future generations are to call me.
Come on. Safa, Safa.
Tell us a story.
Yes, yes, children. I'll tell you a story. Just place it right there. But gather around the campfire, and I'll talk to you about Moses, who was one of the great leaders of our people. He was a great leader in the time of the Egyptian pharaohs.
What is a pharaoh?
A pharaoh is a king, and he was also seen as an Egyptian god.
But there is only one God, and that is Yahweh.
Yes, Reuben, for our people, we have one God, one Holy One. But in the time of Moses, the Egyptians worshipped multiple gods. And in the time of Moses, the people, our people, were slaves in Egypt. Yes, Deborah?
Why were we slaves in Egypt?
There had been a long period of time when there was no rain. And so there was a drought across the land and crops wouldn't grow, so they didn't have any food. So our people traveled and moved to Egypt where there was food. Now, after they were there for many, many years, the Egyptians made them slaves. And they were very unkind to their slaves. And Moses, later he's going to take part in speaking out to those Egyptian slaves. Pharaoh was so afraid of the Hebrew people because they had grown and grown, and there were tens of thousands of Hebrews living in Egypt. and he was afraid that they would revolt and overthrow his kingdom. So he spoke to the midwives who delivered the Hebrew babies and told them to drown all the boy babies, but it was okay to let the girl babies live.
That's just wrong.
Yeah, it is kind of wrong, isn't it? But the midwives respected Yahweh, so they let the boy babies live. So Pharaoh said to the Egyptians, "Whenever you see a Hebrew baby boy, drown him, but let the girls live." Well, one day, a Hebrew woman had a son. So she hid him for as long as she could. He was 3 months old, and she took a big reed basket and sealed it with tar, so it was waterproof. She put her baby into the basket and closed the lid, and she set the basket along the reeds in the Nile River. The woman's older daughter stayed to watch to see what would happen. They knew it was an area of the river where Pharaoh's daughter would come to bathe, and she did. With her women servants, she came down to the Nile River to bathe, and she noticed that basket over in the reeds. And she said, "Bring the basket to me." Well, when she opened it and she saw the Hebrew baby boy, she decided to adopt him. And she named him Moses, because it means to draw from the water. And so Moses was raised as an Egyptian prince.
If he was an Egyptian prince, how did he become leader of the people?
He became a leader of the people in years to come. We will hear about that. But right now, what he did was he saw how mean that the Egyptian taskmakers were, and he saw an Egyptian foreman beating up one of the Hebrew workers. And he was so concerned that he attacked the foreman, and he ended up killing this Egyptian. When Pharaoh heard about it, he sent men to kill Moses, because a Hebrew man was certainly not supposed to attack and kill an Egyptian male. So
What did Moses do?
he fled. He fled across the desert to the land of Midian. And there he met Jethro, a prince of Midian. He married Zipporah, one of Jethro's 7 daughters, and went to work as a shepherd for his father-in-law. So many years later, Moses is out watching the flock, and he takes them to the edge of the desert, to God's mountain, which was called Horeb or Sinai. And there, a messenger of God was seen in a flame, in the middle of a flame. Moses thought that was a little bit strange to see a flame in a bush, and the bush wasn't burning up.
A bush that does not burn? How is that possible?
Well, Moses wondered about that too. So he walked a little closer to it, and Yahweh spoke his name. "Moses, Moses."
I am here.
The Lord said, "Stop and do not come any closer. Remove your sandals, for the ground you're standing on is holy ground. I am the God of your father, God of Abraham, God of Isaac, God of Jacob." And Moses hid his face. He was afraid to look at God.
I know why he was afraid.
Why was he afraid?
To look at God's face is to die.
Yes, Miriam, that is what we believe. To look on the face of God is to die. Then Moses said,
Who am I to go to Pharaoh and to bring the Israelites out of Egypt?
"Well, I have seen their pain, I have seen their suffering, and how they have been oppressed by the Egyptians. And so I have come to rescue them, and I am sending you, Moses, to speak to Pharaoh, the king of Egypt. to tell him to let my people, the Israelites, go. So you will be my spokesperson and speak to Pharaoh. Yahweh said, do not be afraid to speak, because I will be with you. But Moses argued with God and said, oh, I cannot be your messenger. I stutter. And he had a whole list of other reasons on why he could not be God's messenger. But he finally accepted his call and said that he would go. So with his brother Aaron, they left to go to Egypt to tell the Pharaoh to let my people go. So what about you guys? When you're out wandering around in the forest or all, have you ever seen a burning bush that would not burn up? What would you do, Arden, in place of Sarah, Sarah? What would you do if you saw a burning bush that did not burn up?
I think it would scare me.
Be scared? Bryce, how would you, Esther, how would you feel if you saw a burning bush?
I think it was witchcraft.
You think it was witchcraft? Do any of you others have any ideas about what? Okay, what about you, Reuben?
I think it would be cool and yet scary.
Cool and scary. What about you?
I would think it would be amazing.
Amazing. That's a good one, Miriam. Yes, Deborah.
I would probably see why it wasn't burning and study it.
You would wonder why it wasn't burning and studying it. Well, those are all really wonderful responses. I think that it would be kind of crazy and pretty amazing to see a burning bush that did not burn up. So now, children, why don't you gather your blankets and go and get settled down for the evening? I think we oftentimes get caught up with that image of a bush that will not burn. But maybe, just think about it for a moment. What if what is important is that Moses stopped? He stopped for a moment, he looked, and he listened. He listened to God. He even argued with God and debated with God. Now, I'm not sure if I was encountering God's voice in a burning bush or anywhere else that I would be brave enough, bold enough, foolish enough, scared enough maybe, to debate and to argue with the Holy One. But Moses had excuses. I cannot be your messenger. I cannot go. I stutter. Who's going to listen to a man who stutters? He believed that he was not capable of being one who could stand before Pharaoh and demand him to let the Hebrew slaves be freed. He thought that to task them about their oppression was something that he was just not the person to go and do that and to speak out against that mistreatment. But Yahweh said to Moses, do not be afraid. I will be there with you. You will not be alone. So sometimes, as children or as adults, we're asked to do things that we're afraid to do. School is getting into full swing, and maybe when you get to school, you're afraid to talk to one of the new kids in your class. Maybe an adult might be at work and has a new coworker, and they're afraid to talk to that coworker because they speak with a funny accent and they don't look the way that he or she looks, and so they're really reluctant to speak to them. Maybe when you're at school, you see a student being bullied by another student, and you're afraid to speak up. Maybe your friends will make fun of you and laugh at you, or maybe you'll lose your friends. An adult might be at work and he or she might hear their employers speak and say things that are very uncomplimentary and derogatory about an employee who has a different skin color. And that you're afraid to speak up because you don't know, gee, maybe I might lose my job. We're all sometimes afraid. Our legs may be shaky, we may feel like we're going to faint, but sometimes we need to speak up, even though we are scared. But remember that when you're afraid, you are not alone. Think of Greta Thunberg. She is a youth environmental activist. She stood before the United Nations Summit meeting and gave a passionate speech about global climate change. Think how scary for a teenager that must have been, for her to call the entire global community to task over global climate change. And then there are the students at Parkland, Florida. They co-founded a Never Again Foundation to fight for the end of gun violence following the massive shooting at the Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School there. In the midst of their grief, their pain, their anger, they stood before the Florida legislature and they put out their case. And because of that, a state public law was passed. And what about the boy, Jalen Arnold? He has Tourette's syndrome, Asperger's, and OCD. He was bullied at school because he was different. And that bullying created anxiety in him, which emphasized and created more symptoms for him. So Jalen founded the Jalen Challenge Foundation. And through that foundation, he has already educated more than 100,000 students, and so that they recognize bullying behavior, and he has also helped them to understand people with differences and that we're all okay. We're just different. Think how terrifying it must have been for Sojourner Truth, a black woman who was born as a slave. And she escaped, and she went to court and sued a white man to recover her son. She was the first black woman to win her case, to win any case against a black woman and a white man. She became an abolitionist and spoke out on the rights of women. Then there is Esmeralda Simmons. She works for equal rights in education, in quality education for students of color, and she has founded the Center for Law and Social Justice. And Winona LaDuke, she is a Native American. She has dedicated her life to speak up for Native American land rights, climate change, and environmental justice. These youth and adults, they never had felt probably like their activism and this was a response to a divine call to ministry. They may not have experienced that the people who became supporters of them and joined in their causes, maybe that was possibly the divine one walking with them and supporting them and giving them care. We may never have a burning bush moment. We may never have a road to Damascus moment like Paul did on the way to Damascus. Moses, he never envisioned himself as one who would break the bonds of slavery of the Egyptian people and that he would go on to later lead them to a new land and to a new community. Paul, he did not envision that one who was persecuting the Christians would one day be a great Christian leader. We may not be in a line for, one of those Cecil B. DeMille moments. Now, I know some of you have no idea who Cecil B. DeMille is, but if you ever watch the Ten Commandments, that's his movie. Just remember, it's not history. It's a story. But we may be, I believe, called, all of us, every day, every moment, many times, in many different ways. We get caught up in our lives. But I believe that though many of you may feel, well, there are some who are called to ministry, and there are some who are called to be missionaries, but I'm not called in my job and in what I do. But I think you are. I think we all are. I think that many teachers, medical workers, that volunteers, and a host of others are called into their ministry, into their mission in many different ways and at many different times. When you receive your call, will you, like Moses, have a long list of excuses that, I just wouldn't know what to say. I couldn't stand up in front of people and talk. I don't have a plan, or I'm too old, or I'm too young, and so forth. A list of excuses on why you cannot be God's messenger. But maybe you might also come to the point where you, like Moses, will be able to say, I am here. We are called into ministry. Maybe sometimes it's in a little way. Maybe just to smile at someone, or to just go and sit silently with them. Or maybe you're called in a more vivid way. Maybe you will have that burning bush kind of moment where you are called to stand before a city council and speak out and say, we need to ban single-use plastic bags. Many ways we are called, some tiny, some big. Will you be able to stop and take a moment and listen? Moses was called on an ordinary day as an ordinary man, doing ordinary work. But he stopped, took a moment to look, to listen, and to accept his call. Yes, he did argue and debate first, but he finally accepted, I am called to do this, and it will be okay, because God is with me. So when you accept your call, whether it's a big, whether it's small, remember, you're not alone. That those people who come around you, who join your cause, who listen to you, who support you, maybe they too are that divine presence supporting you and encouraging you, so that when you say, I am here, you are not alone. Moses, when he said that, was told, you're standing on holy ground. God is the ground of our being. So take that moment to stand in the presence of the divine. Take that moment to know that you are not alone and God will go with you. Is going to provide us with spatial music. Lost a prayer concern. To thank Jenna for that beautiful music. She is very generous with her talent in sharing her gift with us, and we always find it a joy to have her play one of her beautiful pieces for us. On the offering today, our compassion offering for the month of August has been Wild Plum, the school that meets here, and there are the school bags out in the gallery, and if you want to check on those and help provide school supplies, those would be greatly appreciated by the families. When we take our offering, we won't be passing the plates today. There are plates at the back, and you can drop your offering in that. And if you are watching us on YouTube, all of you have the opportunity that you can write a check and put it in an envelope and mail it to the church, or you can do it online. We are very blessed in how we receive your gifts, and that enables this community of believers here to do so much work, not only within the Longmont and Boulder County, but around the world. So thank you for the way that you support God's work and God's love into the world. And while we are gathered, I'm trying to put this down. Okay, that won't fly away. Karen, it has Joshua at the Battle of Jericho for the offertory. Thank you. You may be seated. I have a prayer concern that was emailed to me by Pastor David. A friend of Rebecca and his is currently in the hospital in Washington State with a major infection. Pancreas and gallbladder are severely impacted with an infection. The MRIs are also being performed on his brain. Jeff is an older gentleman who went to Greece with them in 2006, and David had the privilege of baptizing him in the ancient city of Philippi. So prayers, please, for Jeff and his wife, Joan. Thank you, Pastor David. And prayers, and someone will have to help me with the pronunciation. Is it on? M? Okay, M. Hyman. I'm sorry, I didn't know how to pronounce her name. In Hyman, ask for prayers as she waits to see if her application for Colorado State Judge merits her for an interview with the governor. Em came to us as an infant when our church sponsored the Cambodian refugees. She is a graduate of the University of Wyoming Law School and is currently a judge in Cheyenne. So, wow. I would like prayers for a friend who had unexpected surgery yesterday. She's sedated, and they will keep her on sedation for a time, and she has been intubated, and so if you would keep her in prayer over the next few days and maybe the weeks. It isn't COVID related, but, oh, wow. But she does need your prayers, so if you would please keep her in prayer. So let us come together as the people of God in prayer. Holy One, as we come into your presence, we lift our hearts to you. Some of us filled with joy and giggles, fun with family and fun with friends. Others come nervous and anxious. But we come sometimes filled with grief, sometimes with great pain, maybe mental or physical or emotional. But we come before you as your people. We ask you to be with those who are struggling, the stress and anxiety of this continued COVID and its variations and all of the commotion around it. Wearing masks, not wearing masks, being isolated, not being isolated, getting vaccinated, not to get vaccinated, all of that turmoil that is being stirred up, and we don't know some days on how to cope. So give us strength for the tiring days ahead. We lift up those who are ill. We ask that your presence will give them strength, will sustain them in their time of great need. We lift up those who are seeking new positions in life, be it judges, school teachers, going to school to get training in other aspects. Be with those who are looking to move forward in their life. Help them keep up their spirits and their energy. We give you thanks for all creation. We understand that we are a part of every bit of this earth. So help us to be more loving and considerate. Help us to respect the world that surrounds us and to respect all the people that surround us. We come this day as your beloved children. We come to pray a prayer that was given to us by Jesus, and I would invite you to use the screens because we are a part of the Evangelical United Brethren history, and we are going to use the Evangelical United Brethren form of the Lord's Prayer, which is a little bit different than we're used to doing. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our debts as we forgive our debtors. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom and the power and the glory forever. Amen. To remind you of the prayer heart canisters that are out at the corner of the building. They have canisters for teachers, for others, for yourself. if you have a prayer concern that isn't, you tie a ribbon and say a prayer anyway. That's okay. We want to continue, Misty brought up about the park and pray a couple of Sundays ago, that if you're going by an elementary or middle or high school or one of the colleges, pull over, stop and pray for the students, teachers and the staff, and the parents who still are troubled about, how do I do that math problem with you? But please keep them in your prayers as this new school year gets going. To remind you of the garage sale, September 10th and 11th from 8 to 3. And if you have things to bring, they're filling the stage and Wesley Hall with items. If you have large items, call and check about how and when to get those delivered. On September 11th, there's a 20th anniversary service. It just says that. Is there more that we need to know about September 11th? And okay, got it. Thank you. I'm too short. I can't see the screen. Okay, it's the 20th anniversary of the 9/11 memorial services. That's awful that I didn't know that. Said it will be a 7 a.m. sanctuary service and an 8 a.m. service outside. So if you feel the need to come and join and be a part of remembrance of that day and that great loss, you can come for a choice of 2 services that day. We still have some 150th gift swag, so there's some is on displayed out in the gallery area, and there are order forms there and envelopes where you put the order and your money in or how you need to pay for that, or you can go online and do that. I have another announcement. Give me a moment here, please. My phone keeps leaving me. Linda Patton has an announcement, which I hope I didn't lose. There's a sign-up sheet. Does someone who knows exactly what that is? Because mine has disappeared. I thought it was going to be right there. I'm sorry. Four times. We'll get an all-church email out to everyone since your person in charge today is faulty on losing it. Okay, Lynn has an announcement around the garage sale that they need to borrow tables, card tables, etc. for the sale. Name and phone number written on the back of them, and they can start bringing them anytime and leave in the Wesley Hall as they start setting up on Monday, September 6th. But there's still a missing. I'm sorry about that. We have some sides to thank everybody that helped today. I want to thank our actors. Thanks for the scripture reader, Kate Gordon, Madeline Bone, Zach Bone, Caden Bone, Samantha Firebaugh, and Arden wasn't here, but she did practice with us and was a part of it, and Bryce Howard. And they're not only actors, we also know they're great characters. And for the children's ministry, Misty Bone has been helping, and the support, Julie Houston, costumes, Jean Malchow, Butch Howard, Allison Bowman, and Linda Patton. She was very great about letting us she removed the tables, and then when they come back for rehearsal, putting the front row of tables back so we could have our little campfire scene. So appreciate that everyone helped so much with that, as well as thank yous for Karen McIntosh and Jenna Moore. Do we have others on the thank you list, or have we special thanks? Here we come with it. Eli Salt, Tim Bradley, Allison Boland, Rhea Howard, Paul Bradman, Amy Ellett, Devin Towery, Butch Howard, and Caden Bone. So thank you all for being here and joining us for worship. Are we doing or not doing fellowship time today? No fellowship time. Okay. So thank you for joining us for worship. And Karen has a beautiful postlude, excuse me.